on the air.
Hey, Levi.
Hi, Rob.
It's November.
It is already, again.
And we're back with our Photofocus Lightroom Hangout, and we have a lot to be thankful for. We've got two guests this month. We have Seán Duggan and Robert, who shares my name but goes by V or Vanelli. It was many years before I realized he actually had a first name, and then it was mine. So it's pretty cool. So I'm really excited to have both V and Seán on with us today. Now, Vanelli and I go way back from Photoshop world for many, many years, and it's been really nice to see him just grow and do so many different things over all that time, and super psyched to have you here. Now, Seán and I also go back through Photoshop User Magazine.
Indeed.
We've been writing for that, and we actually did meet at Photoshop World, so great connections there. Seán, can you tell us a little bit where are you coming in from today, and tell us a little bit about how you got into the whole Lightroom photography thing?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on. Pleasure to join you, and pleasure to be on here with Vanelli. And Vanelli, I just want to mention that when I was typing an email or something, or no, it was a Facebook post, I think, to tell people about the show, and autocorrect wants to change your name to Vanilla.
Yeah,
or Milli Vanilli.
Yeah, there you go. There's that too. So totally off topic there, but I just had to get that in because I thought it was amusing.
He's anything but vanilla, I can assure you of that.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm coming in from the Sierra foothills in Northern California. I'm halfway between Sacramento and Lake Tahoe, so it's a beautiful fall day here, pretty mild, as is often the case for autumn in California. The trees are busting out with color, although we're supposed to get our first snow tonight or tomorrow, so that'll probably do it for the leaves.
Well, and Rob was just out there too.
That's right, yeah. I was almost there, and if I had been better on the ball, I might have had Seán join us, but couldn't pull that off.
Yes, that's all right. Rob had a workshop in Yosemite.
Right, yeah. It's beautiful out there this time of year. Anyway, so I've been doing photography since really 1980, I guess, and back in the darkroom days, and been doing Photoshop since, I don't know, version 2.0, back before there was layers, and along the way started writing books and teaching, and now I'm doing lynda.com courses, and also I've got a cool winter landscapes and auroras workshop in Iceland coming up in March, and so people can go to my website, seanduggan.com, to learn more about that.
Yeah, that's definitely on my bucket list to go there.
Definitely a good thing to have on your bucket list.
Yeah. And so, Mr. Vanelli, tell us a little bit about yourself. Where are you calling in from, and how'd you get into this whole thing?
Well, okay, so I'm here in sunny Florida. I was gonna do the hangout by the pool, but it's a breezy 85 degrees.
Oh yeah.
So it's really not pool. It's not pool weather.
Yeah, it's below freezing here in Utah right now.
So, well, I'm finally back after the Perfectly Clear tour, the one that Levi's on now. So I'm finally back at my home base in Melbourne. That was definitely a interesting time, and Levi does like 5 times the amount that I do. So I don't know how he handles going from state to state, or city to city, all over the place.
Yeah.
So, but
I've been jet lagged for a week and a half, or a month and a half. So. Yeah.
So I'm finally back home, and it was neat because I was able to get back to writing again for Photofocus, and I put out like I think 15 new articles I have in the queue. So, but it was, what Levi knows, when you're out on the road, it's hard because you're working, so you jot notes down on stuff that you want to write on, and then when you finally have that moment to rest on the airplane coming back, you wake up and you're landing.
That's about right. That's about right.
And then Rob, of course, with all the books you've written, but it's neat because over the years I've developed friendships with you guys, and like Rob, I always used you for my go-to guy for Lightroom, and if I couldn't figure something out, I'd always get a hold of him, and thank God you've always helped out, getting all the stuff I needed.
Yeah, happy to do it. So for our speaking of Lightroom, Oh, we should definitely take a moment to thank our sponsor this month, HDR Soft, and they're generously giving us a copy of Photomatics to give away at the end of this Hangout. And so the way that we do our giveaways here on these Hangouts is there's a Q&A kind of module that through the Hangout. You have to be kind of watching the kind of full screen Hangout window here. And I'm just going to share my screen because it seemed to be helpful last time. Because I did some screen captures to show what this thing looks like. So when you're watching, you want to be watching from the actual event page over on Google+. And when you're watching the video, you'll see up in the top there's this little grid of icons, and you want the Q&A one. And that will pop open this Q&A pod on the side of the Hangout. And then you can just ask your new question, and then we'll see that appear. We'll certainly do our best to answer your question. And then Levi will keep track of who is asking questions or just leaving comments. You don't have to have a question. If you want to be entered in the giveaway, just leave a comment, and we'll pick that winner at the end. And thanks HDR Soft for that. So, so for getting us started, our Hangout topic for this month is local adjustments. And maybe Seán, would you like to get us started with a little tip or trick or technique?
Sure, yeah. Let me just pop into a screen share here. And you guys let me know when you can see things.
We are seeing it.
All right. So I just want to start off with a quick tip, or a couple quick tips about the graduated filter. One of them is actually pretty simple. Let me actually go to my graduated filter over here. Is that...
I love that thing. What a great tool.
What was that?
Sorry, I love the graduated filter. I'm glad you're showing us that.
Oh yeah, no, it's great. It was a happy day when it arrived in Lightroom.
Yeah.
Anyway, so if you're dragging out a gradient, a lot of people get kind of like perturbed because the gradient seems to be like wobbling all over the place. And the trick to control it is just hold the Shift key down, and it will snap it to either a horizontal or, if you drag upwards, more of a vertical. So it's an easy way to control that.
Very cool.
So that keeps it perfectly parallel to the edge of the screen.
Yeah, so it's great. And then the other thing that perturbs a lot of people, and sort of similar along this line, is that if you place your cursor around the middle, the center line, you'll see the little curved arrows, and that allows you to rotate it. So if you're trying to rotate with the cursor placed on the line close to the center point of the gradient, it's just really hard to control it. So the trick is just to move your cursor out to the outer edges, and just like, you know, working a lever or something like that, you just have a lot more control the farther out from the pivot point that you are.
Perfect.
Very cool.
And then the other thing, a little bit more in depth here, and then maybe I'll toss it back to one of you guys, is one thing that I like to do with gradients is save presets for certain types of gradients that achieve certain things.
Sure.
So for instance, if I come over here to my presets menu, I actually have a preset folder for graduated filters. And so I have, grad darkened by, minus 0.50, upper third, horizontal center, whatever. So if I choose one of those, that automatically creates this saved, or it applies this saved preset, which is just a gradient which darkens the upper part of the image.
Yeah.
And then I can go in, of course, and modify it as needed for the particular photograph. But the cool thing about this is that there are certain types of gradients that you tend to apply over and over again, especially for landscape photographs. So why not save yourself some time, save a preset of it, and you can kind of speed up your workflow.
I love that. So I often save a preset under the custom, under the effects over there. But that's so much faster to save it in the presets panel on the left. I like that idea.
Well, what's nice about it is that, and what you're mentioning here is that if you go to Effect over in the Gradient Adjustment panel, you can see that there are presets down here that you can save. But that would get, kind of confusing here if you had a lot of them. What's nice about this is I can actually group them and label them descriptively, and they're all in one spot there.
And they're one click deep instead of 2 or 3 clicks deep on the in the tool itself.
So I just and I have some here for just general darkening and saturation. You know, if I wanted to do a saturation one as well. And of course, once I've applied one, I could always decide, well, let's pop the saturation a little bit on that one there.
So
Seán, while you're at it, you better tell us.
There's a couple to start you off.
I've got a quick question though while you're there.
Yeah. Seán,
go back to your screen, Seán.
Go back to my screen share? Okay.
Yeah, what was that we're looking at?
Oh, that was, I used to have it around here somewhere. It was, or it is rather, a large lens from a theatrical spotlight.
Wow.
And it is, it's about the size of a small plate, a dinner plate. I mean, not a big, huge plate, but like a small, little bit bigger than a dessert plate. It's really big and heavy, and it's very, very cool.
Yeah.
And fun to take on trips with you.
Indeed, yeah, I know, and try to explain to TSA why I have this large glass thing wrapped up in my luggage.
Yeah.
I'm planning to burn a lot of ants while I'm flying on the plane.
Yes, exactly.
Well, I've got one other question for you there, Seán.
Yeah.
How do you make that little dot disappear?
This little dot here. I press H on the keyboard is the shortcut way to do it. Or, if you forget the shortcut, down in the lower left underneath the main preview of the image, it says Show Edit Pins, and there's a little menu here that says, right now it says Never because I just pressed H, but you can choose, Always Show Them, or Auto.
Auto is nice because then they hide when you hover over the
right. Yeah.
Right,
because it is kind of annoying and distracting when you're just working on the picture. Sometimes you want to see it without the pin there, just to sort of get a sense how it's working.
Yeah. Thanks. That killed me for about 2 weeks when I first started using Lightroom.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, there's a lot of things in Lightroom that where things just sort of disappear, or you're not sure how to hide them, and can be actually quite confusing sometimes.
H is a good guess.
Yeah, H for hide.
That's a common question I get pretty regularly. Is something gone missing relating, pins, panels, toolbars, all those kind of stuff.
Exactly. All right.
Cool. Thank you very much, Seán.
I'm going to come out of the screen share, and you guys can share, and
so how about
I may have some more later.
Vanelli, would you like to follow up with something else?
Yeah. Let me share my screen.
While you're doing that, we got a question in. JP is asking, where can I find a full list of hotkeys / shortcuts for Lightroom? I will post a list on the in the Hangout event page, but Lightroom Queen, we had Victoria on before. She's got a really great up-to-date list of keyboard shortcuts for all versions of Lightroom going back. Certainly the most current version.
Also, I believe in the preference. There's one built into Lightroom for each module.
Yeah, it's command / will give you the shortcuts for the module you're in.
Right.
Very nice.
And there it is. It's under the help menu.
Under the help menu, yep. But if you like to print out a big old list, I'll post that link, and you can print out Victoria's big list.
Great question, JP.
Yeah, and so the questions can be about what the topic we're covering, but really anything Lightroom related. We're happy to entertain those questions or comments if you want to be entered in for the Photomatics giveaway. So, sorry.
We'll probably prioritize related comments. If you ask us about import dialog, we may not get to the import dialog for you today, but we've got a whole section on that last month.
You had to go
that
there.
You can watch.
Well, since you brought it up, sorry to leave you hanging, V.
No problem.
If you did watch this last month, we were talking about the import dialog. Well, since then, Lightroom has been updated again, and now we have the 2015.3 or 6.3 release, and imports back as if it was a bad dream that we all shared, and has now woken up from. and ready to move on. So
I actually like the import window, the new one.
Yeah, and don't update because they took it away.
I know.
I think that's part of the issue was there was obviously a lot of thought went into it and work went into it. I think it was the way it got rolled out to everyone's utter surprise in the middle of the update, and the fact that some features were removed unexpectedly. And then for a user, I just know from helping folks, when your tool that you go to, you have a certain muscle memory for where things are, and you do an update, and then all of a sudden it's all different. I mean, that really can throw a wrench in your workflow. So I certainly understand all the reactions to that, but hopefully, maybe it was just kind of a little like, movie, future flash. We got a little sense of where it might go in the future, and maybe with a little, kind of collective input and a little more hand-holding, we can evolve this thing in a nice way. So, didn't mean to segue all the way that far, but.
And on that note, before we hand it over to Vanelli, sorry about this, V. but on tomorrow's episode of The Fix, which you can find at thisweekinphoto.com/thefix, I actually talk about the latest update and specifically the import dialog and more specifically ways that you can ensure that your photos are going to the right place. So for those people who are... Huh?
How very timely.
Very timely, yeah. Just ripped from today's headlines.
There you go. All right, V, it's all you, bud.
Gotcha. You have my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Great. All right. So we were doing this Vanelli and Friends cruise to the Bahamas, and it was late at night. The model was in hair and makeup for 4 hours.
Wow.
So we're looking at 1 a.m. And my son Alec was in charge of lighting. And when I saw this shot, I envisioned on the left side and on the right side, what I wanted was a red gel and a blue gel. So my son whispered to me and said, "Wouldn't that make a great tutorial for Lightroom?" And I said, "Oh my God, you're right.
You've trained him well."
Right. So then he says to me, after we get done the shoot, he said, "You are so easy." I said, "What?" He goes, "I left the gels on the other side of the ship, and I didn't want to run over. I didn't want to run over to get them." So he kind of played me. So here's the gradient filter. The difference is what I want to do is I want to burn the edges. I want to make them dark, but I want to come down and select a color. So I'm going to select a red. Now when I drag, the red will appear, and if it's not as sharp as I want, I just keep dragging.
Right. You just add another filter and another filter.
Exactly. And then if it gets a little too much like on her face, I find out which one it is. And if I press O for the overlay, I can see what I'm doing. But for here, let me just move it back a bit. I like it here. Now I have to create a new one. This time I'm going to change the color to blue. And let's come in from this side. And maybe a little bit lower. Right about here. And notice what I did on this last one. I'll delete it. If I start from the edge, it gets darker, starting with the right side all the way to the left. But let me delete it again. If I start in the middle area and bring it in, that's where it starts to dark. That's where it starts to go from the dark to the light.
Right. And then you can still adjust the depth of the gradient afterward.
Yep. And like you just said, so if afterwards I don't like a certain color, or if I don't like how dark I did the exposure, I can still change it after the fact.
Yeah.
But it'll change just that one. I like it right there. And then if we do that keyboard shortcut H for hide, and here it is. So here's the final image. So what we went from just a plain simple look. Let's see.
Hit your backslash.
Where's my history? Yeah, I did that, but because I only did a few others.
Oh, right.
So let me just go to the history real quick. So here's the original. So there's the original image, and then here's the completed version. So awesome. Just with a few clicks, you're able to take the same effect as a gel on a speed light or on a strobe, and you could apply that inside Lightroom.
Awesome. I like the way that you built them up too. There, with multiple editions.
Cool. And also, what's neat too is notice it keeps the shadow in place and just adds a little tint to the shadow itself too.
Yeah.
Now, what I really want to know though, Vanelli, is how do you get a laser blaster onto a cruise ship?
It's funny. I'm glad you're saying that.
Or a Nerf gun.
Because my son Alec keeps saying, make sure you start every conversation with, "Look, I'm a photographer." So I went up to the baggage guy, and what I almost said. Well, I'll tell you what I did say was, "Hi, I'm a photographer. We have a prop gun in our bag for the photo shoot." And the guy went, "Oh, thank God." He goes, "I'm glad you didn't come up to me and say, 'Hey, I have a gun in my bag.'" and my son's smiling from ear to ear, and he said, "Well, that's what he would have said if I wasn't here." Sometimes you forget. So, yeah. So if you're traveling, make sure you tell them it's a toy gun, or I even make a little sign. I'll stop sharing. I even make a sign that says toy gun.
Well, good idea.
I've done that before, too. When I've had weird photo props in my baggage, I've actually put a sign on it that says, "Dear TSA inspectors, these are photo props."
Terrorists would never think to put a note on their gun.
Great. Now we gave the terrorists...
Yeah, well, that's the world we live in, right? Hey, Levi, you got anything you would like to share?
Yeah, I'd like to jump over to the Radial Filter, though, to do it. I love the Radial Filter. It is my favorite thing ever. In fact, we've got a whole... Rob and I helped co-author a book with Nicole Young on Lightroom, and I was so pleased to steal the Radial Filter as one of my chapters, because it is just so powerful. Like, for instance, here's a picture, and with the Radial Filter, it's a Radial Gradient Filter, and the shortcut for it is Shift-M, and then you just click and drag over here, and it makes a circular or elliptical shape, and it's got an option here to invert the mask. I'm sorry, I am screen sharing, right?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. And so when I hit invert the mask, now whatever I'm doing is applied inside the circle instead of on the outside of the circle. And I'll double click on my effect to reset it there, and I'm just going to brighten the inside of this circle a touch. And then I'm going to duplicate the filter. Duplicate is the greatest little thing that they ever added to these local adjustments, because it allows me to multiply the effect without repainting anything. And now I could hit uninvert the mask, and in the same place that I did the brightening, I could now, like in an opposite manner, darken the outside here, and get a great effect from doing that. So here's my before. No, wait, that's way before. That won't work. Let's go to the history like Vanelli did, and go down here, just about like that. There's the before, and there's with a vignette and a punch in the middle of the picture. And so I love this tool. I'm going to show you some more things later on. You got anything to show us, Rob?
Yeah. So when I think of local adjustments, you guys are still on the sexy ones, but I thought just to share a little bit about the spot removal tool, which is not nearly as sexy, but still can be useful. And there's a couple things that I think people get hung up on there too. So
the spot removal tool, also known as my excuse not to use Photoshop.
Yeah. All right. Can you see my screen yet?
Yes, you're full screen.
Right, cool. So one thing about spot removal is the keyboard shortcut is the letter Q, and even when you're in grid view, this is same is true for the keyboard shortcut for the adjustment brush and the graduated filter too. You can jump right to the tool right from the library module. So just by pressing Q, went right over there. one of the things
that sounds like it's a strange shortcut, just remember it by quirky. It is a quirky shortcut.
There you go. Thank you. One of the things that sometimes happens is when you get into the spot removal tool, especially, is Lightroom can really feel slow, and that usually is because if you have enable profile corrections enabled, depending on your hardware too, and other things that might be going on, maybe in the background, like when you're doing a live Hangout, your machine can really kind of slow down. So one of the things I have is a preset that just disables that option.
Cool.
So that if I jump into this tool and all of a sudden I feel Lightroom is really working really hard, and I go, oh, maybe I've got profile enabled, I can just disable it with this preset, and then when I'm done doing whatever work I'm doing, I can re-enable it after the fact. So when you're in one of the local adjustment tools and you want to zoom in, if you hold down the shift space bar, you can zoom in, right? And that's helpful. And now I'm on a Mac laptop here, and so I'm going to just close these panels out. Depending on your keyboard, there's another really cool keyboard shortcut for kind of zooming in around your image to make sure you're seeing every pixel in case there's spots. Now, on my Mac keyboard, I have to hold down the function key, and then I use the left arrow key, and that jumps me right to the top corner.
Oh.
On my Windows keyboard, I have the home button will jump me up there to the same spot, or if you have a keyboard that has a home button. And then if I hold down function and press my down arrow key, it's going to take me right through the image without missing a single pixel.
Interesting.
And that's really cool. So if I'm looking to see if there are any spots in the sky, it's really a handy way to make sure that to kind of quickly move through the image instead of just kind of panning around, kind of looking like that.
Nice.
Now, the other thing you want to do before you try and remove spots is make sure your screen is clear.
Yeah.
I have tried to remove spots that are actually on my monitor. And so one way to help avoid doing that is if I come back over here and bring this panel up in the toolbar, we can visualize the spots.
That's so cool.
And so when that's enabled, Lightroom's going to draw mask if it can catch up. There we go.
There it goes.
And it can kind of show me where my spots are. And you can see I've already done some spot removal here. There's those circles that are already there. All right. As I increase this mask, I can see there's a kind of what could be a spot right there. So if I hold down the space bar and zoom back in, and now I'm going to press the A key, and that toggles it back off again, the visualize effect. And there's a faint spot there, and so I can just click on that, and Lightroom will automatically try and find a new spot. And
I love that trick. That's great.
Yeah, it's really handy, and the thing about spots as well that if they're on your sensor is that they're going to be on there for every picture. So if I had a series of these shots, I could then sync this spot removal across all the photos in this series. I might have to manually go through and make sure that the corrections still were good, but at least I would nail the spots that were in there the first time, and then I can just move any pin by just clicking and dragging the pin to a new spot, or the source where it's sampling from to a new spot. So it's a really handy tool. Not nearly sexy as Radial Filter, but it's still a really useful one. So
yeah, no, that's a great one.
And then get out of it. You can press the Q again. You can press the escape key. You can press any of these other buttons to get you out of there. So that's what I got.
Excellent. Hey, and while we're switching back here, Jim Roberts has a question. He asks, what's the command to duplicate the adjustment when we're in one of the brushes? We can duplicate the graduated filter, we can duplicate the radial graduated filter, and we can duplicate the adjustment brush as well. Do you guys know, is there a keyboard shortcut? Or
there
do you just
is.
right-click?
I usually just right-click on the pin and choose duplicate, but there is a keyboard shortcut.
It's
Is it Alt?
It's Command on the Mac. It's Command Option. for the graduated and radial filter. I'm assuming that that's probably the same for the brush, but I will check it right here.
Thank you, Seán.
No, it's not for the brush. Oh, actually, maybe it is. Maybe my yes, it is for the brush. My it just took a second for my screen to update. Yeah. So on Mac, Command Option, drag on the pin will.
Oh, dragging will duplicate it.
Yeah, you have to Command Option and then drag it off.
Okay.
And that's what it does.
Which in the brush, in the adjustment brush alone, is a little problematic because then you've moved the mask.
Yeah, exactly. So it's
not that big a deal usually.
Yeah, I use it mainly with the radial filter is the one I use it most with.
Right.
Me too.
Well, what's cool in this this latest version of Lightroom is the fact that we can actually move the adjustment the adjustment brush and move it around, which is great if you brush on a certain area and maybe you have that same subject, maybe it's a person's face or something in several frames. You could sync that adjustment across those images and then just relocate the adjustment after the fact in each photo. So it is a nice thing, except when you want to duplicate it and then you want to re-edit a different pin, then you've got to shift it off enough.
Right. That's a little.
It would be cool if there was a keyboard shortcut to cycle through all the pins.
Yeah, or like a layer stack of them, if you could.
Yeah, that I don't. Yeah, I don't think there is for that. So.
Yeah. That'd be fun, though. That'd be really useful.
Actually, I had a point that kind of riffs off of the tip that you showed, Levi, where you duplicated the radial filter, and you had one, and inverted it, and you had one that affected the outside and one that affected the inside.
Perfect. Well, you pull that up. Rob, why don't you tell us about our sponsor?
Yeah, so HDRsoft has been a sponsor for a while now, and thank you for your support. And last, I don't know, several months, they've been sponsoring us, and we've been giving away copies of Photomatics. We've had Ron Pepper on.
It's a powerful tool, yeah.
Yeah. So if you check back in our at photofocus.com, you can look at all our past Hangouts, and you can check out one we did on HDR not that long ago.
And weigh in with a question, and we will enter you in the raffle for a complimentary license of HDRsoft, of Photomatics, for making your HDRs look their best. Seán, show us your screen.
I should be showing my screen, am I not?
You're not.
We just see your lovely face.
Oh, okay.
See your lovely face.
Good thing I'm not doing weird things with my face. Ah, I see. I had started it, but I neglected to hit the final button.
There we go.
There we go.
All right, so apropos that tip that you gave, Levi, so I'm just going to apply a radial filter here, and I've got my mask inverted, so I actually want this to affect the outside. And so here's that trick for duplicating with a keyboard shortcut. If you hold down Command Option on a Mac, that would be Control Alt on Windows. Just drag on the pin, and you can drag it out. So I will invert that mask and then brighten the inside of this lens. Now, what I usually do, and this is a question that I was going to ask you, Levi, what I usually do when I do duplicate it is I just sort of move one of them, the duplicate, slightly off center, so it's not sitting right on top of, the first one.
Yeah, that helps me remember that I've got multiple masks.
Right, yeah. So is there a way that I'm not aware of kind of doing what I think one of you mentioned, which is sort of like, being able to see the stacking order if you have, multiple radial adjustments on top of each other? I don't think there is.
No.
Yeah.
You got to shift it off.
I do have a tip for you on that one, though, that you probably already know. But just like the graduated filter, if you press and hold Shift, it draws a perfect circle.
Right. Yes.
And so where you're doing a perfectly circular item, you might.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, that is definitely good. And also the other cool tip is, let me just get a new one here. Oh, never mind. I'm spacing out. I retract that tease of a tip there.
Well, but then again, if you press and hold Shift after you've drawn it, it maintains the shape that you're working with and just enlarges the whole thing.
Right, right. I was actually going to do the tip, which is actually more of a Photoshop tip. If you hold down the Option or Alt key when you're dragging an elliptical selection, it drags from the center out. But the radial gradient always drags from the center out, so it is a moot point. So one other quick thing here. Let me actually, while I'm still using this image here, let me get rid of those radial gradients. I just love that little cloud of dust.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's the only sound effect. That's the only sound effect in Lightroom. The little explosion. I
know. I always think of Wile E. Coyote and the
exactly.
like him falling down a canyon, and then you see this puff of dust. It's my association with that. So I'm going to drag out a gradient here just to darken the top part of this image here, like so. Again, holding the Shift key down will constrain that gradient to a nice horizontal line. And what a lot of people don't realize is that there is this button up here, not really a button, a word at the top of the gradient panel that says Brush. And the cool thing is that you can click on that while you're in the gradient panel and modify the gradient. So I'm going to press O on my keyboard to show the overlay of the gradient so I can see what's going on. And just to cut to the chase here, I'm going to turn the density of my brush up, and even the flow, I guess, and make this a bit bigger using the bracket keys, left or right bracket keys to resize the brush. And what I'm going to do is hold down. You can either click the word erase here in the brush options below the gradient panel here. Again, I'm still in the gradient. I'm not in the adjustment brush. So you can either click the word erase, or you can hold down the Option key on a Mac or the Alt key on Windows. And that's what I'm doing. Got Option down. And I can now quickly brush in where I don't want that gradient to affect the image.
Yeah.
And I have auto mask on here, which is why it's looking a little bit odd there. So I'm going to turn that off just to get that out of there. So anyway, so, in some situations, a linear gradient works great for a landscape photograph, and in other situations, not so much.
Only for Vanelli in Florida is the horizon ever actually flat.
Yeah. Yep.
So that's a very useful thing you can do with to edit the graduated filter, and it also works in the radial filter. If you go to the radial filter, you'll see that there is that same brush option here, so you can edit that if the area that you need to affect is not exactly a nice spherical shape.
Oh, that's a great tip.
Yeah, that is cool.
Love that.
I have one more, if you want me to
yeah, go
do
for it.
Okay.
You're in the hot seat.
This is not so much. This is more, I guess, a strategy or conceptual or philosophical approach to using the adjustment brush, and that is what I like to do with images. Is I like to look at the actual what's going on in the actual image as just sort of a clue as how I might choose to adjust it. Let me hide my side panels here for a moment, and I'm just going to press Y on the keyboard to get to my before and after view.
There we go.
So you can see, the original shot, and then how I've chosen to interpret this. But what I did when I interpret this is I'm looking at what's going on in the actual image in terms of light and dark areas. And a lot of times, what I like to do is I like to basically work with what I call the tonal topography that's already present in an image. And I like to use the adjustment brush to enhance that, to further emphasize certain areas or de-emphasize, or also just to create a little bit more shape and depth. So if I bring back my panels, whoops, and go back to Lightroom, there we go, and go to my adjustment brush, we can see that I have several brushes here already.
Yeah.
That do various things. So this one is obviously affecting the road and is boosting the contrast on the road. This one's another one for the road, which is darkening. And then this is the one that I really want to draw your attention to. This one here is working on the lighter areas of the grasses that are there on the side of the road. And so it is lightening those to emphasize that a little bit more. So if I actually turn that one off and reset it by double-clicking on the slider, you can see that it's getting a lot darker because I've applied a darkening effect overall. But by lightening that up, I'm emphasizing that tonal variation that is already present in the image, and it just sort of allows me to show that area a little bit more and create a little bit more of an interesting image.
I love it.
Got it. Yeah, so what's really neat about... I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, what's really neat about the adjustment brushes, if we think global versus local, and like a global change would be to enhance, let's say, the exposure for the entire image. In your case, you're painting with light. You're making local changes to the exposure or sharpening or whatever you want just by painting in those areas. I mean, it's much like layers inside Photoshop. You have a global change versus a layer, which could be considered a local change.
Right. Yeah.
So,
and actually, just to riff off on a word you use, it really actually has, in my view, a lot in common with painting. Because painters will, add hue and color and brightness just to
select areas.
Yeah, to direct the viewer's eye. One final thing before I stop my screen share here, I'm just going to hold down the Option key on a Mac. That will be Alt on Windows, which gives me my eraser brush, and I notice a few areas here where it's kind of my brush work is kind of getting up there into the darker areas that I didn't want to be affected, so I'll just get rid of that and clean that up.
Very cool.
And there you go.
Excellent.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to come out here, come back to the Hangout world.
I think Vanelli's got something else to show us, and while he gets that ready, don't forget to weigh in with a question if you'd like to be entered in the raffle for a complimentary copy of HDR Soft's Photomatics.
Or if you just want
to finish your pictures.
If you just want an answer to your question, too.
Exactly, or if you just want to say hello, that works to enter you. Or if you'd like to ask a question.
Hey, and we got a question from Teresa for Seán. Teresa asks, just curious, Seán, how often do you use the adjustment brush in Lightroom over doing this kind of edit in Photoshop? Why and when do you just stay in Lightroom?
Boy, putting me on the spot there, Teresa. Well, my philosophy is to do as much as possible in Lightroom. Just because I really like the editing tools there, so I'll do all of my overall global adjustments in Lightroom, and then I'll do as many local adjustments as possible in Lightroom. And I find I can do actually quite a lot in Lightroom. I'll move it into Photoshop if I just feel I need a little bit more precision masking capabilities. Or if I've already moved the file into Photoshop to do other things like create a composite or do other things that I need to do in Photoshop, then once I'm there in Photoshop, I may do additional adjustment layer masking work to do tonal enhancements like that once I'm there.
Excellent.
Yeah, I kind of do the same.
Thank you. All right, V, take us away.
All right. Do you have my screen?
Yes.
All right. So here's my beautiful little cousin, Angelique. This is the first time she's ever done a photo shoot. So with her, I mean, she's 19 years old. She's beautiful complexion. We didn't use a makeup artist. So before Perfectly Clear came along, these are a lot of things I would do to enhance the eyes, lips, and the skin overall. So I'm going to select an adjustment brush. Let's make sure my color is set to none. And much like everyone else, I've learned to create presets. Right. So from here, I want to click on Iris Enhance, and all I'm really doing here is increasing the exposure, upping the clarity, and then bring out a little more saturation in the eyes itself. So I'm going to use keyboard shortcut. I'm going to lower the, I'm going to make the brush size smaller. I'm using the scroll on my mouse. From here, just want to paint onto her eyes. And just to see what I'm doing, I'll press the letter O for overlay. And I'll come back to the other eye. Got it? So with just a real quick tip, or a real quick brush, we've taken a simple look. Let's go from here to here, just by adding a little more lightness into the eyes. Now another area. So now that I have the eyes all set, what I want to do is sculpture her face. So once again, I'll click on the adjustment brush. This time I'll come over and I'll choose like a darker, to burn in, and I'll start with minus 0.3 or 0.30. Press O for the opacity or for the overlay again, and I just want to draw just around her face, just a little. And in this case, if I want a little bit too large, I'll press the Alt key down and come back out and get rid of some of it right here. So what I just did there. So I just drew just a little darker ring around her face, just to bring your eyes to her, or to her face itself. Once we have all that set, now we can come back in. Rob was saying the spot removal tool isn't as sexy or glamorous as the other ones. I'm finding that I'm using the spot removal tool inside Lightroom, I would say at least 90% of the times over Photoshop.
Yeah, me too.
So I'm doing most of anything that I would normally do in a darkroom, I would do inside Lightroom. Any enhancements to where I want to add, let's say, a new background to a scene, or I want to add a different texture effect, then I jump over to Photoshop for that. So I'm looking for Angelique. Here's a problem. She doesn't have any blemishes. All right, so let's pretend her little freckle here is a blemish. So I would click on it, and boom, it's gone.
And then you can resource where it's drawing from.
Exactly.
Because inevitably, it will choose the only other worse blemish to copy into the removals.
So now right in here, notice, even though she's 19, she does have little bags under her eyes here. I shouldn't say bags, dark spots. Now, that could have been fixed if I put a reflector underneath her chin and bounce some light up into her eyes here. But this is where Perfectly Clear comes in, and that does it automatically for me. But that's something I would have taken and brought it into Photoshop to fix. And one last, we have our Radial Filter, and again, I came down and I created a preset called Darken the Background. From here, I just want to select around her, and if you want to see what the effect is doing, just drag the slider all the way to the left or to the right, just so you can get like the extreme look. So from here, I like it right about there. Good. So I didn't add brightness to her. I just darkened the background a bit just to draw attention, to Angelique.
Sure.
So there was and how long did that take? 5 minutes to do a quick enhancing of the eyes. What I didn't do was the skin, which, again, it's just an adjustment brush, and instead of the clarity being at 100% positive, you would take it to a negative, and then maybe dial it back to maybe 45, and then just paint. In fact, I'll just do it quick. Just paint around her face like so, just to soften up the skin a little bit. Now that, honestly, is just a quick fix. It's not something I'd recommend on a regular basis. That's where something like, I keep bringing up Perfectly Clear, but since Perfectly Clear came along, I found myself, let me get rid of that. I found myself starting with Perfectly Clear first to do all my enhancements, and then come back into Lightroom.
And get local stuff. Yeah. So, that's how I do it too.
Yep. So let's see. So here we are. So there's before, and again, watch the eyes really close, and then here's after. Is it showing it? There we go. So it's a little bit hard to see because there we go. So there's a before and after. Again, before, and it just gives you that.
There we go.
There we go. And then the after part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Last time, I'll do it here. And there. Good. So I know it's good. Yeah, there's a little delay going through it.
Yeah.
But that just gives it definitely changed the way I do my my edits inside Lightroom. If it's a quick one-off, then I'll use Lightroom just to go through it all. If it's something where I have to do a batch processing, then I would stick with other software like that Perfectly Clear again, just to streamline the stuff that I'm doing.
Excellent. Thanks.
I tried to keep it under the timeline because I know we have a deadline here, or a hard cut, or a hard break.
You're doing great.
Good. Thanks. Yeah, we've got a question. I was going to say.
Yeah, go for it.
All right.
Take it away.
Jim, and Dana and Craig both expressed their thanks for the hangout. We really appreciate you guys coming on too, Seán and V. And then Jim says, how do you make sure once you have your adjustments the way you like them to protect from accidentally changing them? There doesn't seem to be a cancel changes. And it kind of seems like maybe we can just step back in history with that, Jim. Use the history panel on the left side to go back to a place where it was.
You could also
Seán?
make a snapshot of
right.
the image the way you like it in the develop module. That way, if you do inadvertently change, the adjustments or accidentally delete something or whatever, mess it up in some way, you've got your snapshot to go back to. So that's definitely something that I use a lot.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
I also use virtual copies in this way, I think, to whenever I'm going to make another change, I'll create a virtual copy, and then I'm starting from where I ended on my previous picture, and I've got here I'm doing hand motions again, Rob.
That happens every episode.
Creating a virtual copy gives us a starting point again to launch from.
That was the hand sign for virtual copy.
That's right.
So Jim, it's important to remember that Lightroom, there's no save. Lightroom just, as you're doing the work, that is being written into the database as a set of instructions. And so even if you made a change purposefully or accidentally, as it was pointed out, you could step back in the history panel if you went, oh, I didn't mean to do that. But if you really want to take that extra step of making sure that a certain state of editing is preserved, you can open the snapshot panel, click the plus sign, and save a snapshot, or you could use the virtual copy option, right-click, choose virtual copy from the menu, or it's under the photo menu, I think. And there's a keyboard shortcut for that as well. So any of those ways you can kind of help preserve those settings in a little more with a little more intention than just leaving it. But honestly, I think less accidents do happen. But for the most part, once you leave the develop module, you probably aren't going to make any changes to that image. So
you might export a new DNG, which would just bake those settings into a new file for you, and you could even name it face touched up as a new one if you wanted to help yourself somehow that way. But again, it's like you say, Rob, it's not usually necessary.
Well, you're just creating another step.
Another file, yeah.
Another file, yeah. And all the potential confusion that could result from having multiple iterations of the same image. I see that a lot where people have multiple virtual copies and they're all very, very similar, and what's going on here?
This is the final version. Almost final. This is seriously the final version, final. Yeah.
Ken had a quick question about white balance before going to Lightroom, and I don't know about you, Vanelli, but white balance is one thing I might do before I go to Perfectly Clear, but generally I usually go straight over.
Can I share my screen real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So ready?
While B's getting ready, we got about 5 minutes left, so if you want to get in a last question or comment, please do before we pick our winner.
Do you have my screen?
We do.
So to answer his question, yes, when I do a studio shoot, I start with a white balance card or a Weibo card. Michael Tapes actually lives here down the road from me. He actually created this. I click on the eyedropper tool, then I come over here, click, and boom, there's my white balance. So that's just a real quick way to fix it. And it's a great starting point because from here I actually like the color of it. If I didn't, I could still tweak it just a touch. But this is telling me, what's neutral gray in this actual image. So I start that first, apply it to all, to all the images from this shoot, and then from here, go into perfectly clear after that.
What a fun shoot.
Yeah, great dress she's got on there.
Yeah. Did I stop sharing the screen? I'm sorry. I'll make it real quick. Here's the final image that we did. This particular model, she makes her own everything.
You'll have to share again.
You name it, she makes it. Let's see. Here we go. Got it?
There it is.
All right, there it is. Yep. So that was the final, and that came from Doctor Who.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yep. So that was our final product of the shoot.
Very neat.
Very cool.
Right?
My daughter would love that.
So it looks like we got one last question here before we can maybe pick our winner. Alan is asking, have any of you noticed that when doing spot removal, if you set dehaze to a high setting, it reveals many smaller and fainter spots that aren't always obvious at the normal setting? I have not ever noticed that.
But it's a contrast adjustment in there, and so by altering the contrast, sometimes it reveals more of those spots. But like Rob showed, you can use the visualize spots to show everything, even the stuff that dehaze isn't revealing to you.
Yeah, I'll have to check that out and see. I mean, my first thought is if I couldn't see it the way the image looked, the way I wanted it to look, then I probably wouldn't worry about the spots anyway.
Right.
But I guess, if you're there's a certain situation where you really want to be extra vigilant, then maybe, that would be cool. There used to be, before we had the visualize function built in, people used to have a tone curve that they would use to kind of invert the image, and that would reveal a lot too. So stopped using that once the visualize spots came in. But looks like Wayne put in another question. Do you use your plugins within Lightroom, or do you use Photoshop for more complex editing? We want to take that one?
Yeah, personally, if I'm going to do more work inside Lightroom, like a lot of time, or Photoshop rather, if I'm going to make it a smart object, then I'll definitely go into Lightroom or Photoshop and do my plugins from Photoshop. If it's a quick, I want to just do a real quick edit with one image, then I'll stay in Lightroom, do the edit, then it bounces it back into Lightroom for me, and I can complete some of the stuff I want to do. So I guess the answer to that is, if I'm going to do a lot more to the image and I want a fallback plan, then I'll go into Photoshop, make it a smart object, apply a smart filter to it, and then go from there.
Cool. Seán, you want to add anything to that, or?
I guess I have a sort of a similar approach. I try to do, I try to get the image looking good in Lightroom first, as good as I can get it, and I might try, different variations of it there. But if I feel that a certain plugin is going to give me, a look that I want, that then just becomes a new derivative version from my original. So then I would, spin it off from there. And in terms of whether I'm going into a plugin or whether I'm going into Photoshop, it really just depends on the effect I'm hoping to achieve and what tool I feel is going to serve me better.
Cool. All right, guys. Well, it looks like we're at the top of the hour. Levi, will you pick our winner? And,
yes.
Drum roll.
It's Teresa Jackson.
All right, Teresa. So you've got to
license.
Still be watching. Still be hanging in there. So Teresa, if you're still listening, just jump back in the Q&A and let us know you're here. Do your little game show rundown. That's
right.
And while we're waiting for Teresa, and hopefully not picking a second winner if Teresa doesn't show up, V, where can people find out more about you? Anything got coming up next?
Yeah, well, Photofocus, of course. We're writing tons of articles for them. Then we're doing Vanelli and Friends, another cruise where we take a group of people we're going to go to Cozumel. And so imagine just the what do you call it? Your classroom is actually outside on a deck, actually looking at this beautiful ocean. And we're going to teach Lightroom essentials, and we also take people on one-on-one private lessons. So we do different things with them on the ship, and then once we get off the ship, we do some photo shoots. Then when we get back and we're sailing back, we start to do all of our editing. So it's a full 5-day of an intense Photoshop, Lightroom, and photography workshop.
Very cool.
That's on VanelliandFriends.com.
Excellent. Hey, Levi, Teresa just chimed in. She already has it, and she asked you to pick someone else. She's doing her holiday shopping already. So.
Yes. I picked Wayne Roth.
Wayne, are you still here, Wayne? While we wait for Wayne, Seán, how about you? Where can people find out more about you, and what do you got coming up?
Well, you can find me at my website, which is SeánDuggan.com. Check the Photofocus page for this episode for the spelling, just SeanDuggan. I host a weekly podcast over at thisweekinphoto.com called The Fix, which is all about Lightroom, Photoshop, and post-processing stuff. As I mentioned earlier, I have that episode coming up tomorrow on the new/old Lightroom import dialog. And if you're interested in going to a really fantastic place, one of the most beautiful places on the planet for a really deluxe, in-depth landscape workshop, I'm going to be doing a winter landscapes and auroras workshop in Iceland in mid-March. So if you go to my website, SeánDuggan.com, there's a link to all the details about that there.
Cozumel, Iceland.
To each his own.
Don't we have incredible friends?
Yes,
Teresa wants to win the Vanelli cruise instead. So.
Yes, right.
I haven't seen Wayne chime in here. So
he's in. He chimed in.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, good. There you are, Wayne. Sorry about that, Wayne. Don't panic. Good. All right. So, Levi, where can we find out more about you? Where will we?
Oh, for me, yeah. I'm always posting my favorite ideas over at photofocus.com, and Instagram and Twitter get my latest photos as well. So Instagram at PhotoLevi. And how about you, Rob? What's coming up next for you?
Photofocus is a good place to find me. Not too much, actually. I just finished my last trip. I was out in Yosemite. Happened to miss 2 snowstorms, which is not good because that's when you want to be there. It was beautiful weather the whole week I was there.
Right.
But hard to complain about beautiful weather, and glad that they got the snow, so that was great. But no, I get to just settle in, be home for the holidays, and dream about Iceland and Cozumel.
Excellent. Well, and I forgot to mention, too, we've got a couple of Photofocus photo walks coming up. We've got one next week in Austin and also in Chicago next week. And then the week after that, we're coming down to Tampa and Fort Lauderdale. And the week after that, we'll be in San Diego. So keep an eye out on photofocus.com for those activities as well. I'd love to see you. I think I may be able to twist Vanelli's arm into joining me for one of those Florida workshops. Cool. We'll see. Yeah. So we'd love to see you at those.
Definitely.
All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us this month, and have a great holiday.
Great. Thank you. It was fun.
We'll see you around.
Hey,
thanks, guys.
All right. Take care.